Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 48 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Now, today, I'm really excited. Actually, this morning I finished what I have planned for you guys for episode 50. I had said something earlier about what we might do for episode 50, and we're going to stick on that if you guys know what I'm referencing. But I also wanted to add like a type of free giveaway that we're going to do for episode 50, and I think you guys are really going to love it. I think it's going to be really, really cool. And we're going to look at it and figure out how we can build the episode completely around it. But I have a really good idea of what we're going to do. Really excited about episode 50. It's only 2 episodes away. And so that will be coming out. Today is Wednesday. That will be coming out on Monday, next Monday. I don't know when that is, like June 1st or 2nd or something. Whatever Monday is the first Monday in June, that is when our giveaway will start. And that is when our episode 50 will come out. And that is an episode that I've been planning on, thinking about, and really excited about for a while. It's crazy that we're almost 50 episodes in on the show. And I'm still have horrible grammar, like I thought by now I would learn to speak the English language, but I'm like a 2-stripe white belt in grammar. That's actually something we get into in the podcast today. And speaking of today, I have a really special guest for you guys today. So about 4 weeks ago, I made a post on Facebook and I asked for if there was anybody to fill one more spot that I had for a mental health awareness May that we were doing. And, we interviewed guys like Mark Vives. We interviewed my student Logan Wang, and we did these interviews. We had 3 of 4 already recorded when I decided to do this, but I couldn't fill that last spot. I couldn't find the right fit for that mental health awareness May episode. And so I made a post about it, and I got like 50 inquiries probably. That's probably right. Probably maybe even more. But I had so many messages and so many on Instagram and Facebook on people that would be willing to come on and talk about, or even people who said, I wouldn't be the perfect person to talk to, but I think this person would be. And so it was really cool to get that many people that were willing to talk about mental health, but also that use jiu-jitsu for mental health. And that's why I think it's really important that we've done this month. But here is kind of the cool thing is I got a message from my friend Kristen. Kristen was probably one of the lowest ranked people to send me a message. She is a blue belt under my coach Kyle. And so I think it kind of speaks volumes as to why I chose her to be the person to come on and do this. Actually, I have 2 people that will come on and do this. I have one more mental health awareness. It's not going to be in May. It'll come out in June, but one more episode with a different guest that I think you guys will really enjoy. But with Kristen, she is going to be the 4th person, the person to finish out the pack for May for us for mental health awareness. And I think the big takeaway, the big thing that you will notice pretty much as soon as you start listening is Kristen is one of the most genuine and honest people that you will meet. She's just not, she doesn't lie about the struggles that she goes through and how she handles them and what she's been doing to deal with them. And so that was really cool to get to talk to her about. And that was why I was so comfortable with her being on the show and so excited about her coming on the show. It's because she's just truly genuine. I always look at guests for the podcast. I think something I do differently than a lot of other podcasts that I see is the first thing it seems like they look at is how many Instagram followers this person has on whether or not they want them to be on the show. And I think that's fine. I think other podcasts are very successful with that. But I really, when doing an interview, it's an hour of my time, an hour plus a lot of the time of my time. I really want to make sure that it's somebody that I'm going to enjoy talking to for an hour because, you guys here, there's no ads on this show. There's no anything. It's not like I'm doing this show to make millions of dollars. I'm doing the show because I really am having fun doing it. And I want to make sure I'm talking to people that I enjoy talking to. And Kristen is definitely one of those people. I really think that you guys are going to enjoy this episode. And I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from it. But one of the biggest, and I think the coolest, is just throughout the whole episode, just listen to how genuine and how honest every answer that Kristen gives. And I think it's so important. I think even if the tables were turned and I was on a podcast, I think it's so much easier to try to embellish things when you come on and you know that there's going to be a bunch of people listening to this your story. You kind of talk yourself up, and you will not hear that at all from Kristen. There's just a level of humility and, like I said, genuineness that you guys will really like. And that is pretty much all I have. Without further ado, here is the episode. And we're good. How are you doing today, Kristen?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
I am doing really good. Yeah, it's been nice I got to get a little bit of training in for the first time in
oh wow.
Yeah, forever. And so that's been fun. But you said we started this at 6 today because you said you get off work at 5, right?
Yes.
What do you do?
Yeah, some days 5. Yeah. So I'm a therapist at a community health center, Affinia Healthcare, in the city of St. Louis. And I work with people who have, I'm specializing in what's called dual diagnosis. So people who have a mental health condition or a psychiatric illness, and they also have an addiction or a substance use disorder. So I do therapy and outreach for those folks.
Awesome. What made you choose that?
I think it's probably a combination of things. So my background is not in social work. I went back to school for social work. I was originally, I got my master's in English before even deciding to completely abandon the field completely. And I was always interested in how language can be used as kind of like a medium, almost, through which someone can, by engaging in conversation with someone, you can really kind of help someone either heal themselves or realize things about themselves that they might not have realized on their own. And for when I decided, I don't want to teach English, I don't want to be an academic, I was debating between okay, do I go to medical school for psychiatry or do social work or the more counseling route? So I was like, you know what, aside from the colossal debt that medical school would incur, I just figured, you know what, my background is in language, and it's in communicating and looking beneath the surface between what's said and not said. So social work kind of fell right into it. So
yeah, that's cool. So
that's
that I normally never feel stressed out when I'm doing one of these episodes, but now that you mentioned that you're an English major, and I think back to my English that I use, my version of English, my version of the language that I use, it's not the best. And so I hope that you're not judging me this whole time.
No.
Okay, good.
This isn't school.
So I will literally, a day ago, one of my students, Emily, who I believe is 11 or 12, came up to me and said, hey, that podcast episode you released today? And I said, yeah. And she goes, stupider is not a word. And I said, okay. I will.
Wait, she's 11?
I believe she's 11. She might be mad at me. I swore she just turned 11. She may be 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but so I do have people correcting my grammar on the show.
Wow. At 11 years old or 12 years old.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not easy. Everyone thinks that podcasting is just all rainbows and butterflies, but yeah, people
No.
are the 11 and 12-year-old crowd is brutal.
Oh yeah, that's why I don't do like pediatric counseling. Like people were like, "Why didn't you do pediatrics? Why do you work with adults?" And I'm like, "Because like kids are like there's no filter. Like they're just gonna lay it, it's whatever goes." And yeah, so
That
I
is that
empathize.
is very true. So, just obviously, I brought you on the show to kind of talk jujitsu and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
um, of the sort. But just to start out, what got you into jujitsu?
Um, so this is kind of like a long story, and
That's
it'll
cool. We
probably
got a
be
lot
like
of time.
rambling. I'm just like giving you a heads up. But so I'd say like okay, so when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, I remember my dad was so adamant about me training or like trying some martial art, like karate or like I don't know, some like you know some sort of martial art to probably like to build up self-confidence. And I would not do it. I was like, absolutely not. No, I ballet was my thing. I was a very serious ballet dancer, and I was like, no, not doing it, not doing it. And I think they just kind of dropped it, and they're like, whatever. But as when I ultimately chose to stop dancing right before I went to college for undergrad, I kind of lost this um, core like identity almost, and I lost an outlet, like my main outlet for all of these like the intensity I can experience. And so I would run, but it wasn't really it was good, but I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really. It still felt like something was missing, and I think when Brad, my fiance, and I moved to St. Louis, was that in 2016 or 2017? I can't remember. I think it was like 3 years ago, probably. Yeah. Um, so we were driving to our apartment, and we got lost and made a wrong turn. And I remember turning down I think it was Laclede Avenue, where
Uh-huh.
his old gym was, like
Uh-huh.
where the old gym used to be. And we drove down. And I was like, oh, I saw Watson Martial Arts, and I was like, oh, that's new, that's interesting. I might just try it out. And I started my social work program at WashU, and Brad started his and surgery, and I kind of found myself just I didn't really fit in with, or I didn't believe, and I didn't feel like I fit in very well with a lot of the other students at WashU
Hmm.
and my graduate program. Just because like I was doing a more clinical focus, and WashU's heavily on like policy and kind of like campaigning and stuff like that, and
Uh-huh.
that was just not me. And I, I just graduate school was very stressful, obviously, but like just my own, I think, sanity. I just like I needed something productive to like kind of channel this energy and these like overwhelming feelings I was having. So on my birthday, um, Brad was working overnight. He was on call. So, I was like, I can like, chill out by myself, whatever. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull the trigger, and I am going to try this. And so I think like yeah, I think it was, I can't even remember what day it was, but I walked into the gym and definitely I was definitely scared. I'm not gonna
Uh-huh.
lie.
GPS signal lost.
That was my
Sorry.
phone telling us that,
Oh, I was like,
yeah, telling me that my GPS signal is lost. I apologize.
it's all good.
I'm
All
home,
good.
so I don't think it's a necessity to have my Google Maps on
Yeah,
right now. So,
all good. So yeah, I mean, it was just definitely intimidating, and like I remember like Kyle called me like when I, you know, submitted like, oh, I'm interested in the 1 week free trial, and he called me asking if I had questions. And I was like there are other women who train, right? He's like, yeah, you know, sometimes like 5, 6 in a class, sometimes 3. So I was like, okay, like there will be someone. But like I got there and I think like there's no women. I think there was like rows or something. It was, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna be? What did I just decide to do? But it was awesome, and I remember for like the first time, and since I stopped dancing, that like there was this the same kind of focus was required on like the little movements. Like in ballet, there's a purpose for every movement. You have to be super conscious of where your body is in space and how you're holding yourself, what muscles you're engaging at what time. And it was like that mental component that, you know, I was even like when we were just like asked to start like shrimping or whatever, I was like, you know, it felt so similar in that mental component that I was like, I was hooked at that. So that
so,
was my,
so you said that, you know, you said you danced kind of growing up. Do you still dance at all?
no, I stopped. I took like a few classes, you know, just for fun. It was not, it was good. It was fun, but it's like almost like that was such a huge important part of myself. And I think making that decision to stop dancing and like go to college, or something not dance related was so hard on
Uh-huh.
me, that like it doesn't, I think it's not like it makes me unhappy to dance anymore, but it's, you know, it's still like a charged feeling, I
I,
guess. Like
I,
it took me a while, like before I was even able to like go to the ballet and,
mhm.
you know, enjoy it without being
Yeah.
like, man, that could have been me, you know? So
And it's almost like that chapter of your life is kind of closed, and now you're at a new chapter, which is
yeah,
jujitsu, which you, I guess, kind of recently got your blue belt, correct?
yeah,
Well, I
it was
guess it
like
wouldn't have been
early
that
December,
recently,
I think.
wouldn't it? Okay, early December. I just,
Early, yeah,
I remember that, you know, leading up to it, you know, I knew you pretty well. I felt like we knew each other. And
yeah.
you having the sweetheart that you do when you were standing in line waiting to get your blue belt, I basically, you know, for people that don't know, Kyle has a very large school and he was promoting probably 12 different people or something that
Yeah.
day because it was like a big day. Some type of seminar. Oh, a team day. It was a
It was
team
the
day.
team training, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we were doing a team day, and he said, "Hey, Josh, everybody's name is on the belt. So just hand me the next one as they're in line." And so there are a few people, because I don't train there, there are a few people whose names I didn't know. And so I'm like, "Oh, hey, who are you?" "Oh, I'm Greg." And I would grab the belt.
Yeah.
Well, then I looked at you, who I feel like we know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, being my normal joking self was like, "Hey, who are you?" And you were like, I'm Kristen. I'm Kristen. And I was like, I was kidding. I feel bad now. Like I feel like I
No,
ruined
don't feel
your
bad. I
moment
was
of getting
like
your
in
blue
my
belt.
own world.
So
No, it was all good.
so in bringing that up, kind of I wanted to talk about my first time meeting you. Okay, so my first time meeting you, you had fought one of my students at, I believe it was like maybe a big grappling industries tournament or something like
Yes.
that. And
Yes.
so you had,
Yes, I remember that.
yes, you had fought Betsy. And I remember
Yes.
you went out and towards maybe it was your second match or something, you had what seemed like an anxiety attack. And
Yeah.
I remember being like, oh my gosh, this poor girl, she is never going to compete again. Like that is super stressed. There's no way that she will ever, never going to see her again. And then the next tournament that I was at, I saw you out there and I saw you compete. And I almost want to say that you might have had another anxiety attack. And I was like, oh my gosh, this girl, she kind of grinds. I doubt we'll ever see her again. And sure enough, the next tournament, you were there and you were competing. And so I just kind of wanted to dig into that. First of all, what made you want to compete in jiu-jitsu?
Part of me was like curiosity, just to be like, just see what it was like. Part of it was, I think in the Midwest, there aren't as many women who compete in jiu-jitsu or like who train jiu-jitsu, period. And, Kyle definitely we have grown a lot in terms of like the number of women who train, but I kind of wanted to see like, okay, how do I stack up against someone who is kind of similarly, to my size and who does not know my game at all, who doesn't know me, like what would happen? I can't, I want to get better at it because I feel like I'm much better at the training and the like leading up to it. And, man, I would love to just improve in terms of competing, but I don't think it's something that I'm naturally good at, unfortunately. But
I'm totally on the same page with you as like not being a natural at competition. For me, I had never done anything leading up to jiu-jitsu. So there was no sport or anything like that. I had never competed. And then when it went out, it was like, oh, whoa, I don't know how to handle this. This was a lot. So back to your first tournament experience, did you expect in, I think, match number 2 to fight a white belt world champion as your second match into jiu-jitsu?
No. So like when I found when I found out that I would be having a match against her, I was like, oh shit, like this girl's like, and then I found out like I think she had been training for like a very, very long time and like was is like an MMA person, and I was just like, oh my god, like definitely didn't expect it, but and I had a panic attack like in the middle of the match. I don't know why, but like I guess shit happens.
Yeah, it does. Has that happened to you before? Have you had a panic attack before?
Like in jiu-jitsu
Just
or
in general.
like in life?
Yeah.
Not in like the formal like medical diagnosis of like panic attack disorder. But like absolutely, like there have been times when it like something has been I've been so upset and like I was unable to calm down for a while. But like they feel different almost. Like that was what happened with in that match. I distinctly remember just feeling trapped and like something with my face, like either like I think my face was covered in some way, and that freaked me out. And so which that might mean I'm not like a tough girl or, just a grinder, but I'll be damned. I lasted like 4 minutes and 50 seconds against a world champion. So I'll take it.
And I mean, well, to being a grinder, I think that I think people think of like being like, oh, tough or something like that. It has to do with like the 5 minutes that you're competing. And some of it does, but very little of it does. I would consider tough more being someone that has a panic attack in their first match or first tournament and then competed in another tournament. Because that was kind of where I wanted to go with this was why the heck did you compete again? I would have been so stressed.
Why? Mostly because I was like, all right, like I need to get better. Like this can't keep happening. Like I think part of it was like, and I think I had only been training for like what 6-7 months or something. So like I was like, okay, let's see. I kind of wanted to be like, all right, let's put this to bed. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, that was just I like I said, that was something that was so amazing to me was in that first meeting, just being, like, cause I have seen that happen to people like where they have, and I've seen it happen to some of the, like the adult men that I have that I would not expect it. And it's just, it's like, I think it comes partly from the excitement of competing, but then there's stress and you're worried about like, am I going to disappoint everybody? Am I, and there's just a lot of worry, and you see that happen and that, like, people having those, anxiety attacks, I don't think are as uncommon competitively, but I really don't know if I've ever seen someone have one and then compete again. Cause that usually puts that, like in their mind that, I'm not going to do this anymore. No one else had that. So this obviously isn't for me. And, so that was a really cool thing, and that was in asking for somebody when we're, talking about doing a kind of like a mental health special for May that I've been doing each week, with this podcast. I was thinking, man, I kind of want to ask Kristen to be on because one, I really, just enjoy talking to you. And two, I just think it would come across really well with you delivering it. And so that was kind of my reason. And then I was like, I don't want to ask. I don't know how to ask about that. Well, I made a post and you were one of the first people to respond. And I was like, oh, cool. That was perfect. That was perfect.
Yeah.
So in this, with most of the time with the podcast, I usually have people that are black belts or close, maybe brown belts or something like that. And you are a fresh blue belt. And so this kind of allows
nowhere
me
close to a black belt. So I'm thoroughly.
It allows me to ask questions that I normally wouldn't be able to ask to somebody that would be, that's a black belt that maybe has a school or is a competitor or something like that at a very high level. And so one thing that I would love to ask you, I'm curious about, is what are your goals in jiu-jitsu? Do you have anything that you plan on trying to achieve?
Yeah. Well, I think like, long term goal, I want to get my black belt. Absolutely. I know these are kind of like nebulous really, and your goals are supposed to be more concrete. Still kind of trying to figure out how to break them into little baby goals, but I would love to just win gold in a tournament, like, because I've been close. Like there have been some, like I think my last match, it was like my first blue belt match. There was one girl I fought. We're actually pretty good friends, and we've trained a few times. But there was a time when I was able to execute my stack pass that I've been working really hard on. But I think just little baby mistakes that when someone's been training a lot longer than you, that's, you know, they're obviously able to capitalize on these little baby mistakes a lot, you know, quicker than you would normally, I guess, than you're used to.
Yeah, of course.
So like these, like I've been really close, like so close to winning gold. That like, man, I would just love to finally like get that big W. And you know, up until, well, I was registered for the IBJJF tournament in St. Louis.
Yeah, that didn't go through.
Before it got canceled, because that was like my next, I think the most, like the next goal for, like, I wanted to compete at the IBJJF level. So we'll see. You know, hopefully they try to have one in St. Louis, you know, again, or, you know, Chicago, Kansas City. But that's one thing. That's like, I guess, the next thing I'm really looking to do. And I don't know. It was kind of like all over the place. Oh my. I think, and I want to get, like, I want to get to the point where I'm better at nailing takedowns. You know, I get close, but then I kind of like chicken out, and I'm like, oh, it's taking too long. All right, I'm just gonna pull, like, you know. And I think there's, like, for me, now that I'm starting to kind of get better with my top game, I much rather prefer to get the takedown and get on top, get in that dominant position to start from. But, you know, so I think I jumped ship a bit too early, and end up pulling guard, which, you know, so.
You know, that kind of brings up something. This is like, I always have lessons that I feel like I learned at different belts or different times. And something that I wish I would have known sooner, but I kind of started to grasp as a purple belt was I really don't feel like, you know, people are like, oh, a tournament is totally different than the gym. I don't feel like that, but there are two things that I feel like are completely different than the gym. Is that people don't accept sweeps and they don't accept takedowns. Meaning, you know, when you're half there, right, you're almost on that takedown, and people's ability to fight. And so being able to constantly stay over top of their hips to keep them down is such, you know, it's such a tough fight. I mean, you were at my fight at that Fuji, whatever that was, at, you know, the last 15 seconds of the round, I was trying to get the guy's butt on the floor, and he was just trying to keep his hips off the ground.
Yeah.
And
it's brutal. You know,
it is. It's really a tough fight. And, you know, like, you have to, you know, from a technical standpoint, be really sharp at learning that. So I think, you know, and something that I did a lot at purple belt was when I really struggled that. Like, I really struggled being able to keep people down. And I remember specifically, I don't even remember what the guy's name is that I competed against, but I remember competing in Boca Raton. And that was the time that I really recognized that it was so hard to keep people down that didn't want to be down, especially that are good athletes and they do jiu-jitsu. And I started deciding, well, I need to figure out a way. So something we started doing is, like, we would start with one person hugging the knees. So, like, I would be hugging your knees, you would be sitting on your butt, and we would say, go. And your job is to get up and just not allow me to hold you down for 3 seconds. And it is such a tough fight for people at first, because they're used to people just accepting it in the gym. Like, you take me down. Okay, now I'm going to play guard. Right. And it just doesn't happen when they have those 2 points as the, you know, as the goal.
Yeah, the 2 points on the line. It's
Exactly. It's like, you know, one time one of my students, Dylan, was telling me, like, man, I almost passed your guard. I felt like I would, you know, had your guard passed. And I told him, Dylan, I would rather die than let you pass my guard. And I feel like I've never competed against somebody that doesn't feel that way. You know, like they're like,
Yeah.
no, you could kill me, but I'm not going to let you score these points.
Yes.
So, talk to kind of just about, I just wanted to backtrack just a little bit. You had mentioned, you had said, I forget the words you used, but you were saying when you were starting jiu-jitsu, you were kind of saying when you were missing out on dance, that starting jiu-jitsu was kind of something to help you deal with what was going on in your mind. I forget what actual term you used, but you were saying that. Could you give a little background about that? Like what was going on in your mind that brought you to jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's like a very short answer and then the long answer. So,
Give me both.
Okay. Well, the short answer would be, we just moved to a new city, was not really happy in school, and was just kind of, I didn't really feel a connection with anyone in school, or very few people, and so like part of it was just like, okay, that's stressful, but the very, very long answer, I think, was just involves my own history with chronic mental illness, and how I've been able to kind of handle that and cope with it throughout my entire life. That dance played, like ballet played, such a huge role in. So I think there's a long family history of psychiatric diseases in my family. And my parents kind of figured something wasn't quite right when I was a very young kid. And I was ultimately, I was, in therapy, like when I was 8, maybe, for a while, and not really improving that much. And they ultimately brought me to the child psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder at 11, and I was started on medicine. And that's I don't think that's something that anyone ever does lightly. It's like start a child on antidepressants and medication, and for the longest time, like looking back, like I was like, man, ballet gave me something to focus on, like aside from just, it's like I didn't have the words then. I didn't even have the words to like explain, and when I was in high school, for crying out loud, just how bad it can be sometimes. And ballet was that one thing that like I was naturally good at, and it kind of took my brain, like it forced my brain to be occupied by doing so many other things at once, that like I couldn't think about, the ruminating thoughts in my head, and just like how bad I felt, so when I lost that, I think when I lost ballet, like I think there was definitely, I missed that other like mental, physical exercise type of thing that jiu-jitsu is. And it's, I don't know if it's necessarily like people say like jiu-jitsu is like, oh, it's like human chess or something. So like it's kind of, for me, it's been able to fill that void of like, okay, it's intense physical exercise, but you also have to be very strategic and really kind of think ahead, that you can't possibly think about all, how bad you're feeling, or how depressed you are. Like when someone's trying to, like pass your guard or choke you or like, get you in an arm bar, so I was kind of rambling, but I guess that's the best way I can describe it.
That is perfect, though. That makes so much sense. And I think if we were doing a podcast about jiu-jitsu and it was just going out to just everybody in general, I think there would be a lot of people that don't understand. But since we're doing a podcast that has a ton of people that do jiu-jitsu, almost everybody, I assume, that listens to this podcast does jiu-jitsu, they recognize you don't is indescribable as it is. We all know what you're talking about. That I mean, if I can't make a car payment and I go into the gym and one of the guys has me in Neon Belly, I am not worried about making a car payment. All I'm worried about is trying to get out of Neon Belly.
You're trying to get out. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just like, it's this place that, and sometimes we use the word escape, but I almost don't love that word for jiu-jitsu because you're not escaping from real life. It's part of your real life. You're getting to not be stressed and get this social interaction with your homies and just like hang out. And it's so much fun. And I think for so many people, it is this, it's like a medicine to them, and that's, and getting to, getting to hear that, hear from you that, how much it can be helpful to you. Yeah. Do you feel like there is a big difference in your life overall since starting jiu-jitsu?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think, I've never been someone who like had confidence issue, who like, had too much confidence. Like I was always like, I was a perfectionist since like probably day one or something. Like you can't really be in ballet and not be, a type of perfectionist to some level. And, that's, I've always really just doubted myself a lot. And, never really thought I measured up to, so many other, like a lot of other people. And I just like, I just didn't really feel confident really ever. And, I think I definitely have like so many really close friends from jiu-jitsu that like, I never even anticipated like being able to like, go to like social functions and be, like actually enjoy talking to people and, having these really close friendships that I've been able to develop, so I think, overall my life it's been absolutely changed. So I'm so great. And that's one thing I'm so grateful for, so.
That's cool. So in the current pandemic, I believe you guys get to open soon. Is that correct?
I hope so. I don't want to speak for the big boss, but
we definitely
so.
we're a day closer than yesterday for sure. But
yes.
How have you been handling not being able to go in and train?
I've struggled a lot. I'm just, I'm going to be blunt about it. I've struggled a lot. I've been running a lot, that's for sure. But it's definitely not the same. And it's, I've had a hard time. And it's, it's been really tough trying to not relapse, I guess, and slip back. So, but it's, I keep trying to remind myself like, all right, it's out of my hands, so.
In that first day back in the gym, where you're doing mat angels on the mat, like, on the first snow of the winter, and
Yes.
you get to go back. It is, it is, I believe for most people, and I think that this is really good for people to hear, because I think people are close. A lot of people are close to being able to reopen if their gym hasn't. But it is going to be the same. It's going to be, and I see so many people say, oh no, well, it's going to be different. Everyone's going to be so afraid to touch each other. Everybody's going to be, and it just isn't like that. People, I would assume if it was a bunch of normal people, it would be like that. But
yes,
to do jujitsu, it's not, it's not like we're the most normal bunch of people. You don't walk in, right? You walk into the gym and you say, oh, you know what? So I signed this waiver, and then you guys, we're going to just fight each other to the death. But right before I die, I'm just going to pat you on the back and you're going to stop.
And you're going to stop.
And I just met you today. Okay. Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
And so I don't think that I think that there will be communities that are hit a lot worse than jiu-jitsu. And I know jiu-jitsu is so physical, and there's so much connection and touching and just closeness, but I really don't see it with how crazy all of us are,
Yeah. I definitely agree. I would definitely, like, a little part of me would be like, oh, I don't know, but at the same time, like, well, if we're like officially allowed to be open or whatever, then all right.
Yeah.
What happens. So.
It does. And so, for us, I think it's one of those things when you go in, the gym is the gym. You're going to do jiu-jitsu there,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely part of me is like, has been worrying, like, man, like I could kind of, so like before we even had to, close and stop training for the pandemic, I was like, I felt like I was near like a breakthrough. Like I was like, okay, I was getting the snot beat out of me for like 2.5, 3 months. And I was like, I starting to feel incrementally better. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm about to turn a corner. And then we had to stop training. So now I'm like, oh my God, I haven't probably lost so much, like in terms of timing, and just like part of me is just like, oh my God, how am I just going to be like really terrible when I get back? It's definitely a little bit of like a apprehension there, but that'll go away, I'm sure.
So my rule is, and having come off of injury and stuff like that, my rule is it usually takes you about 2 weeks to feel comfortable again, feel good again. And then right at 4 weeks, you feel like nothing happened, unless you were injured and you're still injured and trying to train through that. But every time that I've taken off, there've been a few times I've taken off 6 weeks for being injured. And, every time I've come back, first 2 weeks are tough, and I just try to listen to my body and not kill myself. And then as things go through, weeks 3 and 4 start to feel like I didn't leave, and so I think it's a lot of, and people always worry about that too, and I've seen people come back much quicker too, and come back from like longer layoffs and look like they never left. So it depends on the person.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always like that 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm really good at jiu-jitsu again. And then 4 weeks, I'm like, I feel like I'm back,
Yeah, for sure.
So before we get to the end, I always finish with the same question, but before we get there, I had one more question. Have you gotten your fiance to train?
No.
Why not?
And so he has been so supportive of me, and like, he's come to like a lot of my tournaments, and he's been really supportive of, and he's like, I have no desire. He's like, nope, I don't want anyone trying to inflict pain in any way, shape, or form on me at all. And that's okay. You know, and so we've made a deal that I will not badger him to try jiu-jitsu or whatever. But in turn, he cannot badger me to take up golfing, which is his passion. And I like, it's so boring. Like I can't. But you know, like he played golf all through college, and like he's really good at it. That's his thing. And you know, I've tried to, you know, learn golf. Like when I think we visited his family once, they took us out to the driving range or whatever, and I remember like I think after my fourth like try to like swing the club and hit the ball, it actually happened, and Brad was like, "Man, you suck a lot less than I was actually thinking you would." So, you know, it's not for me, not something I ever want to practice to try to get better at. And we've both kind of been like, okay, you know, we each have our own things, and that's okay.
I totally understand. Now, I don't want to get your hopes up with anything, but it took, you know, how I guess it took me, it was right before I got my black belt that my wife finally started training. And it was just, I think it was just one of those things. And like, she had tried it a few times and it just had never connected. And then one day, probably like close to a year ago, I was going to, you know, like I'd gotten home from like, I trained in the morning. I'd gotten home and she goes, "I think I want to come to train tonight." And I was like, "What? Are you sure?" You know, and so, you know, every once in a while, you know, they sneak in late. So just know, maybe once you're a brown belt or something, you know, he's going to be tired of golf, and that's when you're like, "Oh, hey, you know, you should come try jiu-jitsu," you know, and just, you know, or you bring him to team functions.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Oh, he's come to, like, I've dragged him to the like the Halloween party, and we've gone to the like ugly sweater party a few times from the team, and he's been a real good sport. So he's been good.
Okay, good. So you see, then you're already planting the seeds. You know, there's gonna be
slowly.
Yeah, there'll be a point where he gets mad at his golf buddies and he needs a way to beat them up, and you're like, "Hey, I know how.
I can hook you up."
All right, so this is what we always finish with. This is it's always the same question. So this is how we will word it. Okay, so I am somebody brand new, first day of class. Okay, I come in, and for whatever reason, I get, you know, maybe you just being nice to me. You come in and you partner with me or something like that, or maybe, you know, you don't want to partner with me and Kyle makes you. And either way, we partner together. And I say, "Kristen, I feel like I suck at this. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?"
How would I respond?
How would you respond?
I would just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. You know, everybody does. Everybody sucks. And the only way to not suck is to just keep showing up and keep trying it again and again and again.
You know what? I really like it. You know, that was actually a trick question. So you're supposed to say, "Keep showing up," and then you're supposed to say, "And then buy Josh McKinney's knee cut DVD." And those
obviously.
those two in conjunction, that's what, yeah. So next time.
Okay. Next time I'll make sure to remember.
Yes. And Kristen, thank you so much for being on. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. I mean, it's, you know, it's huge, it's big, like, you know, honor or something. Like, I was like, holy moly, I'm a measly like blue belt, and you've interviewed so many people who I look up to. So it's means a lot for me to be able to just like come in and chat and just, I guess, share how much jiu-jitsu has impacted my life. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. So
of course. And I think I want to say, I hadn't even thought about that, but I think you were the first blue belt to break it into the show, to be on the show.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
I think you've made it. I think you've made it.
I made it.
All right. Is there anything you want to say to finish?
I can't really think of anything. Just I guess keep showing up. Everybody, keep showing up. It's if you can convince yourself that it's not as bad as the reality in your head makes it, you can get through the next 30 seconds, and then you can get through the next minute, and then the next hour, and you can manage. So, thank you.
That's good. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you.
And that is the episode. I know that I enjoyed recording that one. I know that if you guys are still listening, that you probably enjoyed the episode too. And if you turned it off mid-interview, then I hate you. And you're not hearing this, I know that, but I still hate you, and I need you to know that. So if you know somebody that listened to half the interview and then turned it off, make sure that they know that I hate them. But that's not the point. We're focused on mental health, and that was supposed to be our last mental health awareness episode. But like I said, I had one other person offer to be on the show and talk about mental health, and I just couldn't pass it up. Is my friend Jeff Scholes, who has been on the podcast before, and I got a ton of feedback when he talked about specifically like imagery training for jiu-jitsu. But this time we kind of are going to be a little more broad, and that is going to be episode 51. So that's not going to be out till next week, but also next week, episode 50, that'll be Monday. Again, I still haven't looked at my calendar. I think it's like June something. You guys will figure it out. It's whatever day it says episode 50. That's when episode 50 is coming out. We have an awesome, really cool, absolutely free giveaway for you guys. I think you guys are really going to love, and I'm really excited even talking about it and being able to do it. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that you guys, feel more comfortable talking about mental health. That is kind of the biggest thing that I think could come of doing the episodes that we did on mental health, is that you guys just feel comfortable acknowledging that is a struggle, especially, I know, I just interviewed Kristen, but I think it's a really big struggle for men to talk about. I think because there is a level of emotion, there's a level of feeling, and it's very hard to admit that you have feelings and admit that you're not invincible as a man. And so I think, and I'm sure that women probably deal with that too, but for anybody, it's hard to admit that I do feel emotion. I do struggle with certain thoughts that I have. I do struggle with my mental health, and I use jiu-jitsu for that. And I think it's just really cool to be able to be aware of that, and to be able to be aware that it's okay to struggle with that stuff. It's okay to talk about that stuff. Call back to the episode I did with Mark Vivas, like his willingness to come on and talk about the stuff that he came on and talked about. It should show you that it's okay. Even coming from, probably one of the best Master 3 competitors of all time. And he's going to come on and talk about that stuff. And so I think it's really cool and really important to be able to handle that stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I hope you guys got something out of it. And most of all, I hope you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu.